Morning, everybody. My name is Frederic Spohr. I'm head of Friedrich Naumann Foundation, Thailand and Myanmar. I hope you all slept well and had a great breakfast. So welcome to the first panel this morning. Just let me give you a brief introduction about our organization. Friedrich Naumann Foundation is a German foundation. We work in around 60 countries globally. And everywhere we work, we promote freedom. That means we promote democracy, freedom of speech, civil rights, and everything that is connected with that. We work with local partners, that means NGOs, journalists, but also government agencies. And if you have any idea to work with us achieving these goals, promoting democracy, then please get in contact with us. So today, the topic of the first panel is freedom of expression. Thailand has no exception. Of course, Thailand has not. I had a quick look at the numbers, and what you see is that the NGO Reporters Without Borders ranks Thailand on place 115 of 180 countries. You can have a look. You can have a look at it like positively. That means it's the second best rank for a Southeast Asian country. Only Malaysia protects freedom of expression more than Thailand. I was actually a bit surprised to see that. Even countries like Indonesia or the Philippines protect it less. But of course, there are also 114 countries globally that protect freedom of expression more. So definitely there is a need to improve media freedom and freedom of expression in Thailand. I think the most controversial, or maybe let's say prominent issue, is the lèse majesty law. It's regularly criticized by international actors, also states. Just in the last Universal Periodic Review in the UN, there were many complaints. For example, Norway said that the Article 112, which is the lèse majesty law, should be reformed to bring Thailand's law into international standards. Denmark said that children shouldn't be charged under 112. 112 can bring you into jail for decades. And critics say, NGOs say, just like Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch say, that it's used to silence political critics. This is only one issue. There are other laws that are controversial or criticized by international actors, such as the Computer Crime Act. We will also talk about that today, and also defamation laws that are a danger for social media users and, of course, for journalists. So please let me introduce you the dear panelists today. Online joins us Noppatjak Attanon. He is editor-in-chief of workpointTODAY, which is a news website in Thailand. It's quite new. He's building up a team. And he will tell us about how it is being a journalist in a country where media freedom is ranked 115 of 180 countries. Then I'm happy to welcome Korbkusol Neelapaichit from Asia Center. She just worked on a report on the Computer Crime Act, and she will present us her results on that. And then we have Theerapat Ungsuchaval. He's a lecturer at the university, Bangkok's university, Mahidol University. And his focus of interest are NGOs, civil participation. And what he does is that he's also doing a research on one of the projects of Friedrich Naumann Foundation, which is called Thailand Talks. It's a project to bring people with different political views together. We launched it last year. Hundreds of people participated. We will also do it this year. And Dr. Theerapat will put some details or put a light on this project and what he's interested in it, and why he thinks it's connected to freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Yeah, so I would say let's start with Noppatjak, maybe to give us a general overview about media freedom and the situation of media outlets in Thailand right now. So give a warm welcome to Noppatjak and all our panelists. Thank you very much.
Hi, Kun Noppatjak. I think you are muted.
All right. Okay. It's good now. May I ask you quickly how long should I go? Like what minute? Can you hear me now?
About 50 minutes, 10 to 50 minutes.
Okay. Yes. And yeah, I cannot yet share my slide if it's possible. Can you please tell the staff to allow me to share the slide? And yes, my name is Noppatjak Attanon. I am the editor-in-chief of WorkpointTODAY. WorkpointTODAY is an online news publisher from Workpoint organization, which is quite a big media organization in Thailand. And speaking of state of Thai journalism, I think right now is quite dangerous, because I would say, like, wait a minute, I'm trying to turn on my slide. Just a second, sorry. Well, first of all, apologize for everyone that I cannot be there, and I have to share my experience on Zoom. Okay, I think this should be good now. So when discussing Thai journalism, I think there's three big topics that is quite important for like our state of producing news and journalism. The first thing is, of course, freedom of expression. The second thing is the social media platform. And the third thing is economic struggling. These are the three main factors that has become the obstacles of producing quality journalism in Thailand. I'll come back to the freedom of expression. I think I know that today we are focusing on freedom of expression, but everything, is a consequence of another factor. So the other 2 points need to be addressed. The media platform. So what we are dealing right now is that I work online, and I think already 80 to 90% of Thai people already use online media, and Thai news organization already moved to online. And what we are dealing was that simply speaking, the audience and what they watch is on the platform. It used to be a newspaper, it used to be a television, it used to be television. But right now, what we are watching from is the online platform. So just a second, I just realized that. Okay. So what people are watching now is from YouTube, Facebook, Tick-Tock. All these social media platform are the place where people go and consume news. So they are important. These tech giants are important in terms of what people will get to consume. And the next point that I put on is engagement trap. The meaning is that the online media is different to television. What people see are what visible to their feed, their social media feed. And to make it visible, you need to make it you make it engage with people. So when it comes to engagement, mostly they are soft news, mostly they are cat and dogs video, content that invite violence, a content that easy to consume. So the quality journalism, like something like investigative, something like a good analysis is getting a bit more difficult for people to engage. And especially, like some media platform can choose what kind of topics to be present on newsfeed. Like they can decide that, okay, for this year, they will not discuss about politics. They will, whatever contents that talk about politics, it will decrease the visibility. So this is the monopoly of social media, the monopoly of YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. They have the ability to decide what people see and not. And last thing on the important trend of social media platform is the rise of TikTok. The rise of TikTok, I would say that when I talk to my journalists, I tend to tell them that not to call this kind of production a TikTok. It's more of a 1-minute video. And the reason it's important is that it's no longer only on TikTok, but this kind of 1-minute video is everywhere. It's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, and it's on Instagram as well. And people already addicted to like short format video, like 1-minute video, whether it's being on any platform. And the fact that people is already addicted to 1-minute video, it's definitely gonna affect the way we produce journalism, because like if it's short, then we have to find a way. I'm not gonna say that, okay, if it's a short video, it's not gonna have a quality content, but if it's short, then we have to find a new way to produce it. But eventually, like with 1 or 2 minutes, it's difficult to present something in depth and sort of vital and important topics compared to a longer. It used to be like when I started working on as an online news editor, used to be like 3, 4, 5 minutes video. Nowadays it's like 1 and 2 minutes. It's getting shorter and shorter every day. So we have to adapt, and eventually it's affect the quality of journalism. So that's about social media. I just give it a brief talk about it. And secondly, like economic, after COVID, economic struggling hit everyone, including journalists, including news organization as well. So just for a start, like how we survive, how Thai media survive, our income pretty much, like 30% from platform. We make money from YouTube, Facebook, Google, like that's 30% of our income, and 70% is from like big corporates, like advertisers, advertorials. They may pay us some money to produce a video for them. So when our income is direct to big corporates, consequently it has to do with the nation GDP as well, like the nation economy as well. If the economy is bad, big corporates gain less money, and then eventually they have less budget for our companies. But like frankly speaking, media industry is still survive very well, because especially online. This is a very ironic part, is that big media like TV and newspaper may struggling more, but online media might do better because the amount of budget, like budget allocation for online media is less than big media. So the big corporate will decide that, okay, if the economy is bad right now, we should pay for online media first. Yeah, so this is how it goes right now. So I think like in the near future, I think this trend is still going. we will see, you know, like, because right now TikTok doesn't pay the content creator yet, but we will see how it goes in the near future. And we have to adapt all the time, you know, like 6 months ago, the short minute, like 1 minute video, short form video isn't that big compared to what it is now. And like 3 months ago, I have to come up with, you know, like a team consists of like 2 or 3 people. We have to allocate my resource to produce this 1 minute video. So as you can see, I have mentioned about social media platform and economic struggling, and I'll get back to freedom of expression. You know, like, of course, like, I think it's a given that every country probably in the world has that, you know, one unique thing that being special about each country. And, you know, like, I think the monarchy is something that has to do with Thailand and Thai journalism. And of course, lèse majesté laws had a direct effect to our freedom of speech. And I think it's more than that. I think, like, if we say like lèse majesté law is a problem, I think there are, to be honest, there are a lot of people who are willing to go to prison if they are able to talk about the thing that is illegal. You know, like, a lot of journalists are brave enough to go to prison, but the fact that a lot of them cannot speak is that they work in an organization, and if they say something that shouldn't be said, they will the effect will happens not only to them but also to the organization. I think the fact that Thailand is a collective society, you know, like the fact that once we work together, I am an editor, I'm the boss, and I have a journalist who's like, once we work together for like 1, 2, 3, 4 years, we kind of have that bond, you know, like we are like a family. So if a journalist have the courage, they want to say something, you know, like that maybe like against monarchy or something, they will feel like, okay, if they say it or if they report or write about it, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt me. It's gonna hurt the company. So for me, like I said, you know, like, the laws itself, of course, it has a strong effect to people, but also there are other factors as well. You know, like social values, the fact that we are collective society, the personal bond that we have, the financial effect that it has. You know, once we, I think, like, we can say that all these things, you know, like judiciary, big corporates, the monarchy, they are the establishment, all these things, these people are all connected. So once they see like, okay, this media are being aggressive, they talk about something that shouldn't be touched, like the monarchy, they will spread the news, and they will sort of cut loose, you know, like cut the tie between the big corporates and the news organization. So will affect us financially as well. So yeah, that's my first point. I think everyone know about lèse majesté, and I think like our honored speakers will discuss more about this in depth, but I'm here to tell you from media perspective that how it affects us. And secondly, the slap is, you know, like, mainly, you know, it may not have to do with the monarchy or the court or the judiciary system, but, you know, like, the big corporates can use the legal process to shut down the journalists. And I said, and like I said, I'll say it again, you know, there are, I think I have worked with a lot of journalists. They have enough courage to like, okay, let's put me in prison. I want to publish this piece. I want to, you know, like, tackle on these important matters because it will change the world and create a greater impact. But in the end, it's not as simple as that, you know, like, once we get the court, like the court document, when we get involved into the laws, involved into the laws process. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money, you know, like to hire a lawyer. It takes a lot of hours from everyone, not just the single journalist, you know. It will, you know, like the problem will occur, and then everyone will have to do with this, and we'll go back to the same thing, you know, like we are a collective society. The journalists will feel bad, and eventually it will lead to my last point, which is self-censorship, you know, like with all these things being factored in, at the end, journalists tend to have like a self-censorship, and it goes to the point that someone may not say something that are able to say, you know, like the self-censorship is so deep in people, so they give up on saying something might not be aggressive, might not be challenging to the main institution anymore, but they will just give up on it. I think that's the key. A few things that, you know, like the main things that affect Thai journalism. There are some hopes, you know, like with online media, we get to produce, we get to discuss about the thing that important, and we get to have a healthy conversation and create a better atmosphere. For example, like LGBT topics, for example, like a SODAS, you know, like seniority topics. Like 10 years ago, I was a journalist and I produced a piece talking about the fact that the hair cutting rules in Thailand is sort of, you know, barbaric. And I get lynched from my boss. And nowadays, you know, like if we produce something that makes sense, people will support us, maybe from comment section, maybe like people will share the article and say that they agree with me. And we can show this to present to people that a lot of people, majority of people agree with the piece that I produce, and the rules will, you know, like eventually change. This is a good thing about the state of journalism nowadays. But of course, there are still some big obstacles that we haven't been able to conquer yet. And of course, there are other things that, you know, like, for example, like direct violence. When our journalists going to like cover protest story, these are the things that happen, you know, like they got shot. So these are the direct violence that have an effect on freedom of expression. Moreover, you know, like regulation from NBTC has a lot to do with our coverage as well, because they are the organization that dealing with Thai journalism. So yeah, these are some of my points. I think I have gone over 15 minutes. I will give the floor back to Asia Center team. Thank you very much for sharing knowledge with me.
Hello? Yeah, it works. Noppatjak, thank you very much for this very interesting presentation and your first-hand insights into how it is to work like a journalist, as a journalist in Thailand. So thank you very much. Yeah, you mentioned the economic struggles that I think is not unique to Thailand, but globally that's a pressing issue for media organizations. Then you moved on to and the power of social media platforms that are a danger for classical and traditional media. Then you moved on to 112 and how it affects reporting, and of course it still has a impact because yeah, it's not only the law, it's also the social pressure and the structures in Thailand that enforce it. Then you moved on to the threat of violence, of course, and street protests in Thailand have occurred several times, and that's also a danger for journalists. So now we'd move on to Korbkusol Neelapaichit. She's a researcher at Asia Center, and you recently worked on a report on the Computer Crime Act, and we are very curious to hear your results on that. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you FNF and Asia Center for having me here. I'm Korbkusol Neelapaichit. I'm a researcher at Asia Center. Okay. Okay, freedom of expression is standardized at international level and also regional levels. Article 19 of ICCPR and also General Comments number 34 also protect all form of expression and the mean of their dissemination and their dissemination. Thailand ratified ICCPR in 1996. However, the country has been slow to submit the ICCPR said party report. Article 23 of ASEAN Human Rights Declaration also guarantee the rights of freedom on opinion and expression, whether in form of oral, writing, and other medium. Thailand, as a member of ASEAN country, also adopt the declaration in 2012. However, freedom of expression is not absolute. There are allowed for limitation, but the limitation must conform with the three international standards. That is legality, necessity, and also proportionality. In addition, the Joint Declaration on Freedom of Expression and Fake News Disinformation and Propaganda issued by the UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Opinion and Expression and others also issue a key principle that include that intermediary should never be liable for any third-party content. Extreme measures like blocking website can be only justified only by law and necessity. Also, the prohibition on dissemination of this information based on vague and ambiguous ideas like fake news, that one is also incompatible with the international standard, and this kind of measure should be abolished. In Thailand, Article 34 of Constitution allow people to enjoy the liberty to express their opinion, make speech, write, print, publicize, and express by other means. However, the rights can be strict for the purpose of maintaining security orders, protecting the right or liberty of other people, maintaining the public order, good moral, and also protecting the health of people. As shown during the UPR process and also international index, freedom of expression in Thailand has dropped since 2014 military coup. Many legal measures has been adopted to limit freedom of expression, that is to silence critics. Okay. In the last June, Asia Center will launch the report, Thailand Computer Crime Act, restricting digital rights and silencing online critics. This report, we review the provisions of the so-called Computer Crime Act or CCA, and we try to examine how this act is problematic. Okay. At this point, our report consider the two timeline of political timeline and also CCA timeline. We found some hidden implication. In 2006, we have military coup, and in 2007, the CCA was introduced. In 2004, we have another coup, and also the number of offense under the CCA significantly increased. In 2006, the CCA amended draft is introduced, and also we have the protest from people both from online and on-site. However, in 2007, the CCA amendment has been effective. And in 2019, we have Palang Pracharat military-backed government from the government. And also this year, the Ministry of Digital and Economic also introduced the new plan to amend the Computer Crime Act. From this both timeline, we can see that how the CCA has been under the dark shadow of the authoritarian regimes. As I mentioned earlier, we have a 2007 CCA and also the amendment in 2017. What we found is that the CCA is, of course, CCA. Because it's control the online content, it creates a huge burden on intermediaries, and also it against the nature of internet, because the internet is decentralized, borderless, and global and worldwide. But the CCA try to control the flow of information and block content in domestic access. And also, if we back to the international and regional standard, we found that the CCA is incompatible with the standard I mentioned before, because the CCA contain vague words and allow authorities to block website and also place liability on intermediaries. Our report also continue to examine the impact of the CCA. This one is the 5 key section we study that because it impact on the digital rights. First is section 14 is about entering false information into computer. Section 15, ISP who related to the section 14 will be punished. Section 18 refuse to comply with the international information request by police will be punished. Section 20, ISP who refuse to block the content, the certain website will be punished also. And section 26, ISP who decline to retain the internet traffic data will be punished also. Okay, this is the key case that some editor in Chiang Mai, she was prosecuted under the CCA because posting this picture. This picture is picture of the 3 ancient kings in Chiang Mai province who wear the mask. This one is a part of campaign for air pollution in the Chiang Mai. She was prosecuted because under the CCA because the authorities consider that this picture makes damage to the economy. Our report also studied the impact of CCA in Thailand. We also found 4 impacts. The first one is denying access to critical content. Second one is harassing and prosecute internet user. And the last thing is putting pressure on ISP and also internet tech company. In the first case, we found that in 2020, the Ministry of Digital Economic and Society revealed that the court have issued order to block 13,500 URL that commit the lèse majesté offense. And the second impact is harassing. We found that the ministry or MDES issue a notification request all citizens not to follow, contact, share, or engage in any activity with 3 famous monarchy critics. The last impact of the CCA is about prosecution. The famous case, we can say that in 2009 and also 2010, Kun Jiranut Premchaiporn, the director of Pacha Thai, was charged for failing to delete lèse majesté comment on her platform. And recently in 2020, a graffiti Mr. Danai Usma from Phuket, he was prosecuted after complaint about the COVID-19 screening process in international airport. Okay, however, based on our interview, even those who are persecuted or harassed see the importance of the CCA. Because the act should be used to tackle real cybercrime that apply features of computers such as virus, spy, or malware. This act shouldn't be abused to manipulate online content or prosecute legitimate expression in online space. And of course, Thailand has no exception. Our report recommends to amend provision of the CA to align with the international standard and principle of legality, proportionality, and also necessity. We also recommend to promote digital rights among all groups of people across our country. And last thing, we also want to recommend to raise a public awareness about the CCA and also its implication. In early this year, the Ministry of Digital Economic and Society announced a plan to amend the CCA together with the study of possibility of the single gateway. The proposed CCA amendment, we found three possibility of the third amendment. First, we found that there is no guarantee that online political expression wouldn't be affected. Second thing, the main amendment will focus on the information access to help the authority to identify the offender easier. And the last possibility, we see that the new CCA would be adapted to grapple with the new features and update algorithm and also advances technology. And apart from the CCA report, Asia Center also will launch the report Internet Freedom in Thailand. It will be launched today at the last panel, 16 panels by Destination Justice. If you are interested, please go to the last panel. I will stop here, and for more information or full report, please visit Asia Center website. And thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Korbkusol, for giving us some insights on the Computer Crime Act, which is not only about prosecution of content, but also blocking of content. And thank you for the examples, how it is enforced. So now I would move on to Ajahn Theerapat, lecturer at Mahidol University, and as I said in the introduction, he's doing a research project on Thailand Talks, which is a project that has been initiated by Friedrich Naumann Foundation, but it has become much bigger than us. Around a dozen organizations, media outlets have joined it. And Ajahn Theerapat will explain about it and about his research goals. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So let me begin by saying good morning, everyone. And thank you for having me today. My name is Theerapat from Mahidol University. And I think that the previous speaker did well cover issues and problem of freedom expression in Thailand. So my talk is going to be more optimistic compared to the previous speakers. I'm sharing you from academic point of view an activity called Thailand Talks, which can potentially be considered a hope for Thai people to exercise Thai freedom of expression and expand the scope and scale of having safe public space to express, to talk. Okay, so what is Thailand Talks? Basically, it is an activity introduced in Thailand last year in 2021, but is firstly adapted for My Country Talk, which is originally initiated in Germany in 2017 and then applied across the world. Basically, it is an open, safe public space to connect people with different opinions to have a one-to-one conversation, and it uses a kind of matching algorithm software to pair people based on the different opinions of answering kind of questions. What kind of questions that Thailand Talk use? Basically, it is a kind of potential topics that Thai people should talk at that year. So basically, last year, we talked about public spending, the judicial system, the role of military in politics. We talk about inequality in gender, digitalization, a lot of stuff. But in this year, we move. I think we can upscale the conversation. So now we are moving to talk about right to die. We talking about monarchy, the future of Thailand, and the freedom of expression itself. So basically, Thailand Talk platform asks people to answer yes or no questions. Like, should freedom of expression come with appropriateness? Yes or no? For example. So this kind of platform kind of allow people with different thoughts come and talk together. And Thailand Talk is a kind of special way to organize activity because it is based on partnership approach, which means that it organized with a collaboration between NGOs, universities, media, and businesses. So a lot of people just come up and try to have conversation. How can Thailand Talk contribute to the freedom of expressions? Of course, like I say before, it's a kind of exercise that Thai people can have. Firstly, I think the Thailand Talk is a social platform where people exercise their freedom of talking, of expressions. But it's not just that, because Thailand Talk can be thought at a semi-idle speed situation where people can express without intervention from external actor on equal basis. People come together with an equal manner and talk without intervention from the government. It can be also considered as a public sphere, which means that we try to have a community of conversation where people just sit together in a safe space and talk. So conversation is the main form of expression here. And then this is important because I would like to highlight that expressions and freedom of expression is not just about talking. Expressions involve multiple dimensions. It, of course, has talking at the center, but it does not just talking that made conversation of Thailand Talks. It links with how people hear things, So talking must come with listening. And then it's not just talking and listening with people, but it talking and listening with strangers, not just normal strangers, but people who have totally different opinion, So it's kind of challenge that how we Thai people can exercise this kind of thought, talking with people we don't know, who think in a different way than us, and listen to them. So Thailand Talk, it is beyond talking. And by listening, it's just not you hear something, but you need to make that talk on the topic being heard. So I think that Thailand Talk has a potential to follow the rule of free listening. It means that when you try to listen, it's not just about you. You don't aim to kind of like answer, but you listen to ignite further conversation. And the conversation is not kind of balanced, because people need to think that they shouldn't talk more than 20% of the time. They need to listen to other people. And this kind of thing have leads to empathetic agreement, that people seek to understand what the other people are saying. And just that, no more, but no less. Just try to understand what other people are saying. Of course, talking and listening involve kind of non-verbal action like eye contact, nodding, some other stuff. And it have respect for silence. Because when people silence, it means that they are thinking. And when they are thinking, we give time to them, not just keep talking, but just thinking and reflect. I know it's simple, but it's very hard to do in practice. It is beyond talking, because we now are dealing with strangers. Of course, talking and listening to strangers are an infrastructure for many things. How we come up together, how we make policies, how we make towns that we are living in. So it means that people and strangers need to come and connect with each other. But Thailand Talk try to help Thai people make sense of strangers by turning what has previously been abstract, imaginary, to real and present human with face, emotion, and stories. So basically, it tried to connect strangers, and by this, it then have facilitate association and civil society. Thailand Talk is also beyond talking, because it deal with difference. And I think that at least 4 levels of difference can be addressed through the activity. First, of course, we need to understand how people think differently. And this involves empathy. So Thai people can learn how to pay attention to empathy and make use of it. And the second level is not just trying to understand, but try to live with the differences by learning how to tolerate people who don't think like us. And it is a fundamental principle of democracy. And then we need to appreciate the differences. And this means that we need to go beyond just tolerate people, but try to admire, advocate people to think in a different way. And eventually, I believe that by dealing with strangers with a different idea, it can fight polarization, which take deep roots in Thailand, because we hope that we can have impactful conversations. And I quote one of the quotes from Armin Fox, and he's a professor from University of Bonn. In this quote, he said that even just a 2-hour conversation between people with completely different political views is enough to weaken polarization, because the meetings held dismantle prejudice against those who think differently. And after the conversation, participants consider people with other views on average to be less incompetent, less malicious, and less poorly informed. But what kind of challenges we are facing when we have Thailand Talk? Of course, Thailand Talk is a potential exercise for Thai people, but it doesn't come with challenges. We live in kind of like authoritarian society. Having a safe space is not easy, So I think that the first kind of problem that can have that having conversation, especially with strangers with different opinions, is not intrinsic to the Thai culture. We are not trained, educated to be with family of talking, So Thai people have been very trained to listen, not just talk, but we don't mean or trained to listen for different opinions or even contrasting opinions. And running public space, I mentioned before, to have a conversation in the politically sensitive issues like monarchies is not safe and sometimes is limited under the authoritarian government. Fourth point is that facilitating issues to be heard is hard, especially in a deeply polarized society. How we make issues that have a high degree of controversy be heard in society. And the last point is that there is still a big room for engaging partners with contrasting standpoint to join and help organize Thailand Talk. Because sometimes we are still try to move out of echo chambers. How can we engage people that think in a different spectrum to come and join the event and have conversation? Until then, so we can have a full or total exercise of freedom of expression in Thailand. Okay, I will stop my talk here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ajahn Theerapat, for your theoretical reflections on Thailand Talk and how it can contribute to freedom of expression in Thailand. So we have now, I will skip the wrap up because we only have half an hour for questions. Thank you very much to all our three panelists for the presentations. And now I would open the floor to questions. If you have a question, please tell us your name and your background. Thank you very much. Yeah, over there, please.
Hi, I'm Steve from Kim-Ming University, South Korea. I have a question on Korbkusol's Computer Crime Act. I'm interested in one of your slides showing three kings statue wearing mask. And you say that the one who shared this picture was prosecuted for something related to economic security. So what is economic security, and how can they, what is the burden, who will give the burden of proof of this harmful to economic security? Thank you.
According to Section 14 of the CCA, whoever entering the false information in computer will be punished, especially who this kind of information affect national security, economic security, and also public order. In this case, it happened in Chiang Mai city. Chiang Mai city is tourism city, and the one who report the police for this case is Chiang Mai governor. He is the one who report this case to the police. So he think that this case can damage the image of Chiang Mai city, because he claimed that this picture too much complain about air pollution in the city. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I'm Notes from FNF. Just a follow-up question. Were they found guilty or acquitted, or is it still ongoing? Are they in court?
So now it's during the in court ค่ะ
Yes, over there. Oh.
Hello. Hi, my name is Ben That. I'm a research associate at Asia Center. I have a question for you, Dr. Theerapat. So you mentioned that in your project Thailand Talks. So basically, what you do is, bringing people together to discuss, people from different political backgrounds to discuss on different topics, and so that they can weaken the polarization in society. My question is that when it comes to the topics that there's let's say black and white topic, say slavery, say if one participants argue that slavery should exist. So my question is that what would your approach be when it comes to this kind of topic? Should we find a middle ground with this, or should we completely go against this? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question. I think this is a very good question. But I can say from my personal point of view, but I'm not an organizing team, okay? So the organizing team might have a different opinion. But for me, Thailand Talk is a space, safe space without intervention. So I think when two people come and talk, they should not be interrupted by external people. So they need to deal within themselves. But of course, it's some topic that unacceptable and universal agreement, like what you suggest, slavery, right? I think, of course, this kind of topic, we have a meta consensus that it is not right in the modern world. And I think that people who come to talk might not raise this issue. Even one of them raised the issue. The other people might just say that this is not a productive topic that we can talk, But anyway, how conversation go, how topic is made, are totally depend on two people in conversation. I'm not sure I answer your questions or not, but that's in my thought.
Yeah, maybe I can add to that a little bit on that. Of course, we already predefined some questions, all the organizations that were part of it. So we were about 12 organizations, sometimes even more, discussing about questions, what should be discussed, what should be not discussed. And of course, we use questions that, we didn't say, is slavery okay, yes or no, because that wouldn't be a question to ask, because of course it's not okay. There's nothing to debate about it. If there is someone who joining the talks who has opinions that are not acceptable from a human rights point, that could happen. Also, the conversations are in private, so we wouldn't even know it. But of course, the good thing is that most likely his view would be challenged, right? And most likely a person who is pro-slavery, slavery would never get into a conversation with somebody who is pro-slavery on that, or it would be very unlikely. So the idea is to bring extreme, or like if there is an extreme perspective, the idea is that this perspective will be kind of softened by listening to someone who has a different view, and that might increase empathy and understanding for other perspectives for this person who has these extremist views. So this is the idea behind it. Are there any other questions? Okay. So then I would have one more question to Korbkusol regarding the Computer Crime Act. What we see is that often restrictive laws are copied by authoritarian regimes. We see that with NGO laws, for example. Did that happen in Thailand too? Like, did Thailand copy that or fragments of the law or paragraphs of the law from other regimes? Or did other regimes already use paragraphs or parts of the Computer Crime Act in their countries? Like, does it spread to other countries, these tools?
In terms of legal measure or law that restrict false news or fake news, I think this one is quite increasing in Southeast Asia. We see the case in Malaysia and also Singapore. They use this kind of law, I mean, to prosecute and punish those who input the fake news or false information. Some kind of that.
Frederic, I can sort of add some texture. I think we haven't done a forensic of the laws in order to articulate clearly what portions are. But generally, in Southeast Asia, when it comes to things related to media and internet in particular, usually Singapore is the one that leads the pack with new laws, simply because it's a small place and a very enclosed place. They have the resources to go into comparative, study of international legal jurisdiction, and then they mine it to see what they can use to control the digital space in Singapore. So the trend since 1995 in the region is there's a trend to copy and paste bad laws, quite a lot of it from Singapore, especially the restrictive ones dealing with digital space. So when Singapore, most recently in the discussion brought in their version of the fake news laws, countries in the region were literally excited, the leaders, and if you look at the statements made by some of the leaders around the region, they want to have similar laws as well, right? And because COVID hit, suddenly they put those laws as provisions under emergency decrees, generally, and a lot of them are still in place. The most interesting example, of course, in Malaysia. So that's the general trend in the region. Back to you, Frederic. Yeah.
Thank you very much. There was one more question.
Yeah, now it works. Now it works. Marcus Brand, International Idea. Maybe more of a comment on this discussion about laws and repression. I think the problem is that many hybrid regimes and autocracies have learned to apply laws that literally are identical with those applied in functioning liberal democracies, but the way in which they are interpreted and applied is the problem. So you will probably, if you do a forensic analysis of computer crime acts and these kind of things, you will probably find very similar laws in countries that rank very highly as open democracies with strong freedom of expression. And these hybrid regimes and autocracies often defend themselves like that when they get criticized from international bodies like the UN. Now, the problem is that how you interpret, and you gave a good example, how can one possibly interpret this as damaging the economic security of a country or a city? Well, if you stretch it, you can. And here's the problem with the role of the judiciary, of course, because as soon as you criticize the way the judiciary applies laws, you will hear the defense, well, we have an independent judiciary, we're not interfering in the judiciary, and you're not supposed to do that either. But of course, that's where the problem lies. And as you said, the problem is in the complete lack of proportionality, necessity, and these kind of considerations in applying such laws. And in a functioning constitutional democracy with fundamental rights protected in the Constitution, you would basically have an appeal to a constitutional court or a Supreme Court and challenge such kind of judicial interpretation. And that's why I think the focus should not just be on the text of the laws that are in place, but in the way in which the judiciary is used and is allowing itself to be used in basically doing the dirty job of defending autocratic regimes, because this is the same pattern that we have seen in Europe in many places and really around the world. And the focus is the wrong focus is sometimes on the text of the legislation rather than on the way in which this is interpreted and the way in which judicial decisions can be challenged.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment. Are there any other questions? Okay, I don't see any. Then I would say we will close this panel and have a coffee break, or I give back to the Asia Center as organizing team. Thank you very much to all the panelists. I think those were very interesting presentations, and also thank you very much for your questions and the discussion. Thanks a lot.